When a former royal goes head-to-head with Britain's sharpest tongue on live TV, the result isn't just tense, it's explosive. What you're about to see is how Meghan Markle pushed Graham Norton past his limit until he did something nobody expected. He kicked her off his show. What started as light banter quickly turned into a fierce clash of ego and pride, proving that even the most charming host in Britain has a line, and Meghan crossed it. The famous Graham Norton Show set glowed under its purple and red lights. Cameras were rolling as Graham turned in his chair and shot his trademarked mischievous grin at the audience. Everyone knew they were in for a night. His guest, Meghan Markle, a figure who has fascinated, divided, and exhausted the public in equal measure. Graham adjusted his cufflinks with a flourish before announcing, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Meghan Markle." The audience responded with polite, cautious applause as Meghan walked out from backstage in a fitted green dress, hair in perfect waves. Her heels clicked sharply across the stage. She gave a practiced smile and lifted her hand in a controlled, almost regal wave that felt formal more than warm. "Meghan, wonderful to have you here," Graham said as he stood to greet her, offering air kisses. "Thank you, Graham. Lovely to be here," she answered coolly, glancing toward the cameras as if checking her angles before focusing on him. From the start, there was tension, not nervousness, but the sense of two people already locked in a quiet power struggle. Meghan sat on the signature red sofa, legs crossed neatly, hands resting in her lap. Graham jumped straight into his trademark style. "So, Meghan," he began, "the whole world seems to have something to say about you lately. You're practically keeping half the British tabloids in business. Is that the plan? Stimulate the economy single-handedly." The audience laughed at the joke, but Meghan's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Well, Graham," she said evenly, "I wouldn't expect you to understand the complexity of living your life under constant attack. I wouldn't call it stimulating the economy, more like feeding vultures." "Oh, good heavens," Graham replied lightly, though a brow flickered. "Feeding vultures. You've had your own say, too. Interviews, a book, a Netflix series. You've given them plenty to chew on." Meghan tilted her head with a faint smirk. "I'm sorry, Graham. Is this your show or their show? Are you here to interview me or just repeat tabloid nonsense?" The audience's laughter turned nervous. Graham's smile tightened, but he stayed composed. He leaned back, folding his hands over his knee. "Oh, I assure you, Meghan, these are my questions. Though I'll admit, they're probably what everyone at home is dying to hear." "Well," she shot back crisply, "maybe you should think about asking better questions." The room went cold. The playful tone slipped. Meghan's control started to crack, and Graham's patience started to thin. The witty back and forth shifted into something openly hostile. It stopped feeling like entertainment and started feeling like a confrontation in front of millions. Graham lifted his water glass, took a sip, and set it down. His eyes narrowed just a touch. "So, Meghan," he said smoothly, "you've always said you believe in honesty and openness. Let's be honest then. Do you ever regret leaving the royal family, or is everything going exactly the way you planned?" Meghan's mouth tightened. "Regret? No, I regret trusting people who didn't deserve it. But leaving? Absolutely not." Graham leaned toward her elbow on his knee. "You say that very convincingly. Though some would say you've built a pattern of walking away from obligations." The audience let out a soft gasp at that. Meghan snapped her head toward him, the smile gone. "Excuse me? Is this how you treat all your guests, Graham? Or is this just for me?" "Oh, no," he said, letting his smirk return. "Just the special ones." Meghan laughed, but without warmth. "Well, I suppose you have to provoke someone to make good television. Is that what this is? Because it feels more like bad therapy." The crowd tittered. then quieted fast as she kept going. You know, Graham, for someone who profits from other people's stories, you're surprisingly bad at actually listening to them. A flash of sharpness crossed Graham's face. Oh, I listen just fine, Meghan. I just know when a story is a performance instead of reality. That hit. Meghan straightened, her tone going hard. Performance. Are you saying my life is some kind of act? Well, Graham replied lightly, you are an actress. The audience burst into a mix of gasps and uneasy laughter. Even the band looked tense as Meghan's cheeks flushed red. You know what? She shot back, her voice rising just enough to carry. At least I know who I am, she snapped. I'm not hiding behind a desk taking cheap shots at other people because I'm too scared to take any real risks myself. Graham's mouth tightened into a thin line. His hands clasped a little harder. Well, at least I don't confuse playing the victim with being brave. The room froze. Meghan stared at him, stunned for half a beat before her usual controlled expression slipped back into place. You really think you're clever, don't you? She said. Sitting here every week, mocking people's pain for ratings. Better than cashing in on it, Graham shot back instantly. The audience inhaled all at once. The tension between them was now alive, like static in the air. Meghan leaned in, eyes locked on his. Careful, Graham, she said quietly, voice low and edged. You're one question away from making a very big mistake. Graham said, matching her tone. And what mistake would that be? Asking you what everyone else is already thinking. Meghan let out a short, humorless laugh. No, Graham. Forgetting that you're not untouchable. Silence hit the room. People in the audience actually shifted in their seats like they were afraid to make noise. Graham leaned back in his chair. Fingers steepled in front of his mouth, studying her like an opponent instead of a guest. Touché, he said at last. But let's see how long you can keep this up. By now, the tension was suffocating. Everyone in the room could feel it. Meghan's barbs had cut through every polite line, and Graham's patience was nearly gone. What had started as teasing had become a direct showdown, and both of them were starting to crack. No one in the studio expected how far it was about to go. Meghan sat stiffly on the famous red sofa, arms now folded, eyes blazing. Graham, usually unshakable, sat still, his usual easy grin gone, replaced with a tight line of irritation. Even the audience, who'd come expecting fun and celebrity gossip, didn't dare even clear their throat. Well, Graham said at last, breaking the silence, at least we can agree on something. You're consistent, consistently combative. Meghan let out a sharp laugh. You're hilarious, Graham. A man who's built a career poking his guests thinks I'm combative. Original? Not original, he replied calmly. Just accurate. She tilted her head, voice dripping sarcasm. Oh, do you get a medal every time you insult a guest? Just enough to get headlines, but not enough to get canceled. Is that how this works? The audience gasped. A few people laughed, but nervously. Graham's mouth twitched, not into a smile. Oh, don't flatter yourself, Meghan. I've dealt with far more difficult guests than you. Meghan leaned toward him, her voice dropping to a quiet, precise edge that cut deeper than yelling. I'm sure you have. But tell me how many of them walked off this stage wishing they'd never come. Graham's jaw tightened just a fraction. He adjusted his cuffs before answering. The ones who confuse being called out with being attacked usually do. For a moment, Meghan hesitated. Then she recovered, her voice rising. Oh, please. You're not calling anyone out. You're just another bitter old man clinging to relevance by tearing people down. The words hung in the air like smoke. You could have heard a pin drop. Even the band had gone still. Bitter. Graham repeated quietly, though his tone had lost any softness. You're calling me bitter? Meghan didn't blink. That's right. Bitter, jaded, cynical. Take your pick. His nostrils flared just slightly. Better cynical, he said evenly, than sanctimonious. Color rose in Meghan's face, but she gave a thin, defiant smile. That's cute, Graham. Really? Trying to flip it back on me. Is that what you do when you run out of clever lines? Graham shifted in his chair, no longer bothering to hide his irritation. Oh, trust me. I've got plenty left. Then Meghan made the mistake that changed everything. You know? She said, openly mocking now. I can see why you've never really moved past this sofa. Too scared to do anything real. Too scared to build anything. Easier to sit here and take shots at people who've actually taken risks. The audience gasped. Graham's eyes narrowed, his usual color draining. You think sitting here isn't real work? He said, you think this has no value? That's interesting, coming from someone who turned being a victim into a business. Meghan's eyes widened. She actually laughed, sharp, cutting, almost disbelieving. Even the cameras seemed to hesitate. There it is, she said. Finally, the truth. You just can't stand that I walked away and I'm still bigger than you'll ever be. You think walking away makes you brave? Graham's voice rose now. Even the producers at the edge of the stage looked alarmed. You think dropping responsibility and then complaining about it makes you admirable? Meghan shot to her feet. The movement was fast and defiant. The audience recoiled in shock. You don't get to talk to me like that, she hissed. You don't know me, Graham. You don't know what I've been through. And you, he replied. Voice colder now, don't know when to stop. They were both standing now, facing each other over the red sofa like a line had finally been crossed. Meghan folded her arms and stepped closer. You're pathetic. Graham gave the faintest smile, but his eyes didn't smile with it. And you, he said quietly, are finished. The entire room gasped. Even the lighting felt different. Like the whole studio understood something irreversible had just happened. Meghan's fists clenched at her sides. When she spoke again, her voice had dropped to a low warning that the mic still caught. You'll regret this. Oh, my dear. Graham replied in the same quiet tone, I already do. The air in the room felt heavy. Neither of them moved. Neither of them blinked. It was a standoff. The audience sat frozen. Meghan and Graham stood face to face. Pride and anger on full display, neither willing to give an inch. But every fight has an ending. And when it came, it was brutal. No one in that studio would forget what happened next, the moment Graham stopped being the charming host and became the judge. And Meghan ended up walking off that stage with nothing left but defiance. The silence dragged. Meghan's arms stayed crossed. Her stare didn't waver. Her breathing was sharp and loud enough for the microphones to pick up. Graham's hands were gripping the back of the red sofa, knuckles pale, jaw clenched. Somewhere in the audience, someone coughed. Another voice whispered, "Oh my God," under their breath. The cameras stayed locked in, catching every second of the tension. Then Graham straightened. His entire expression had changed. The usual mischievous sparkle in his eyes was gone, replaced with something cold and controlled. He smoothed his jacket, adjusted his tie, and spoke in a voice that was calm, sharp, and final. "Meghan," he said, formally, "I think we're done here." Meghan stared at him like she hadn't heard him correctly. "Excuse me." "You heard me," he said, standing tall. His voice carried easily through the quiet studio. "This stopped being productive about 10 minutes ago. And as much as I enjoy a spirited debate," he paused, then finished, "I'm not going to let my show turn into your personal therapy session." The audience gasped. For the first time all night, Meghan actually looked taken off guard. You're kicking me off your show?" she said, her voice higher, shocked. Graham's mouth curved slightly, but there was no warmth in it. Let's call it ending early. For everyone's sake. At the side of the stage, producers exchanged panicked looks, but no one stepped in. Meghan's hands dropped, then slowly tightened into fists. "You don't get to dismiss me like I'm just." Her voice shook, some forgettable guest. Graham lifted one hand and cut her off. "Oh, my dear. I'm not asking you to leave because you're forgettable. I'm asking you to leave because you're unforgettable for all the wrong reasons." The audience reacted again. More whispers, hands over mouths. A few people even clapped before stopping themselves. Meghan didn't move. Her eyes were bright, still burning with anger. "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "You think you can humiliate me? You think this makes you look strong?" Graham's smile sharpened. "No, Meghan. This isn't about looking strong. This is about reminding you and everyone watching that respect isn't optional here. And you walked in without it." That was the breaking point. Meghan pressed her lips into a hard line. Without another word, she snatched her clutch from the sofa, lifted her chin, and turned toward the exit. No one in the audience made a sound as she crossed the stage. The cameras followed, tracking every step. At the studio doors, she paused. She looked back at Graham once, her face unreadable anger, defiance, and maybe something else underneath. Then she walked out. The door shut with a small click. In the silence that followed, that sound felt like a bang. For several long seconds, Graham stayed where he was. Then he drew a slow breath, adjusted his jacket again, and turned back to the audience. A hint of his usual sparkle returned to his expression. "Well," he said, "I suppose we'll be needing the bigger sofa next time." The studio broke at once, part laughter, part nervous applause, part pure disbelief. The tension started to lift, but the air still felt charged. Everyone knew they had just watched something they were not supposed to see. Even the band came back in carefully, filling the space with a few tentative notes. But eyes kept darting toward the door, like they half expected Meghan to storm back in. She didn't. As the cameras cut away, Graham exhaled. His shoulders settled, but his eyes stayed hard. He had made his choice. He wasn't backing off. And Meghan, somewhere past those studio doors, heels hitting the hallway, was already turning it into her version of the story. No one in that building was going to forget what just happened. What about you? Did Graham go too far, or was he right to ask Meghan to leave? Tell me what you think in the comments.